I was really was very pleased with our plenary this morning, and I thought it got us off to a great start. And I was able to drop in on each of the workshops for a little bit, and they were all really excellent. And I just want to say that while we engage in these interesting and important topics throughout the conference, I just wanted to offer a reminder that the content and the views expressed, of course, are those of the presenters. But it's been great stuff, and I look forward to the balance of our conference, starting with this next plenary. Before I do that, though, before we move on, I want to thank our sponsors and supporters, Mutual of America, Associated Bank, Tricor, Social Development Commission, International Union of Painters and Allied Trades, Wisconsin Arts, Forward Community Investments, Whipley, Freddie Mac, and of course, the Department on Children and Families. I also want to make sure to thank our planning committee and give a special shout out to Tom Benke and Anna Sansbury, who have just really done heavy lifting on hosting all of these workshops throughout the conference. So thanks to everyone who's made this possible. I want to say a brief word about our theme, and that being Beyond Borders. You know, prior to the pandemic, we arrived at this theme, but obviously the global pandemic has only made this more relevant than ever. Among other things, we've witnessed COVID-19 exposing the fragility of borders and boundaries, be that with respect to social geography or policy or programs or service delivery. And I thought a lot of our speakers this morning, actually all of them, really did a nice job connecting those themes and helping to sort of reinforce that interdisciplinary approach that we're trying to take with this conference and our work on an ongoing basis. They really did a nice job talking about sort of the complex relationship between poverty, policy, program in place. And that's exactly what we wanted to do with the conference today and tomorrow. So as we go about in our collective efforts fighting poverty, let's just always try to be mindful of the connections between the global and the local, and how these issues that we all struggle with on an everyday basis are given particular form by such considerations. So with that, I am going to hand it over to my friend and my favorite banker, LaDonna Reed from Associated Bank. And LaDonna will introduce Treasurer Garlewski and our next panel to talk about homeownership and the Take Root Wisconsin initiative. Thanks for joining us, LaDonna.
Oh, so thanks, Brad. I'm starting to feel like the favorite banker comment is similar to my favorite lawyer comment, right? Yay, they like us. They really like us. So good afternoon, everyone. As Brad said, I'm LaDonna Reed, Community Accountability Director for Associated Bank. And in my role, I work to ensure the bank's success relative to our community commitment plan, which lays out our intent to invest $3.37 billion in low to moderate income and communities of color across our 3-state footprint of Wisconsin, Illinois, and Minnesota, of which, you know, Wisconsin is our headquarters state and where we have our deepest presence. We are so proud to be a partner of WisCap and our CAP agencies across the state. The work that you do supports those most in need. And as a partner, you also use your voice to ensure that the needs of your constituents are heard and collaborate to find solutions to support them. And we're so proud that we get to be a partner in that work. So I'm really excited about the conference theme, Beyond Borders, collaborating across geography, community, and policy, because I really had the opportunity to do that with you guys as a part of the Wisconsin statewide homeownership network, which led to the creation of Take Root Wisconsin. And I don't think that work would have gotten done as quickly as it did without the leadership of Treasurer Garlewski, whom I now have the extreme pleasure of introducing. So Treasurer Garlewski is a 5th generation Wisconsinite, former small business owner, proud Green Bay Packers shareholder, and as the Bank of the Packers, we're so excited about that, and financial expert from Eau Claire, Wisconsin. When politicians tried to eliminate the Wisconsin State Treasurer's Office through a ballot initiative in 2018, Sarah led a bipartisan coalition to save the office, defeating their effort with an overwhelming 62% of the vote. Sarah then stepped up to run, winning her election with 51% of the vote in November of 2018. As treasurer, she's led a $1.2 billion state trust fund that invests in communities across Wisconsin. Since the beginning of her tenure, the fund has distributed an unprecedented $113.4 million. Early on, her leadership led to the removal of a gag rule, preventing the state from considering the risk of climate change when making investments. Since this reversal, she has fought to ensure that smart investments are made that benefit our communities and Wisconsin's economy. When the COVID pandemic hit, Sarah led the fund to provide an additional $5.25 million to Wisconsin school districts to expand virtual learning and tackle the digital divide. Sarah has also been a tireless advocate for Wisconsin small business owners in the pandemic, helping them navigate the resources available to them and being a voice in Madison during this unprecedented time. In March 2020, Sarah formed a coalition of local treasurers and community partners to improve homeownership in Wisconsin, aiming to help people buy, maintain, and stay in their homes, which we know is critical because we know that when people have stable home ownership, critical outcomes such as education, health, and others are so dramatically improved. In the wake of the pandemic, this Treasurers Homeowners Task Force has created an early response system to help people avoid delinquency and untimely foreclosure, knowing that it is more important than ever that Wisconsinites stay safe in their homes. I am now going to welcome Treasurer Sarah Garlewski to talk a bit about this work and where they see it going in the future. Sarah.
Well, thank you, LaDonna. It is, first of all, so great to see you. It's been, I think, a few months since we ended the task force and just continue to roll out all the great work statewide. And I will say thank you for your leadership because it was a true partnership at the end of the day. Having lenders, community action networks coming, local treasurers, all coming to the table to say, what can we do to help homeownership made a difference. So could not have done it without you. I will also say, go Pack, go, as you can see, always on message here, LaTanya, always on message. So
yes, you are. So we appreciate it. Sarah knows that I'm based in Chicago. So I'm a Bears fan first and NFC North fan second, but as the Bank of the Packers, I'll take it.
I love it. We can talk football after this, but hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. I was actually at Poverty Matters 2 years ago, and it's such an important forum where thought leaders talk about new ideas, important initiatives, uplifting other people's voices as we together work to combat poverty day in and day out. So for me, and Julie, I don't know if you want to bring up our slideshow, but as state treasurer, something that I added to the portfolio is to make sure that economic security was front and center of our work. It was, of course, about taxpayer transparency and smart investment management, but it was also about making sure that Wisconsinites have a quality of life. And when we look at what is important to building strong communities and building wealth for our state, it is a home. I mean, a home is typically the largest asset that anybody owns. And it's really important to making sure people have the ability to buy a home. But we know that's just not the case. I mean, here in Wisconsin, our home ownership has actually been declining since 2000. And if that is not enough, we have seen how literally we are below the national average in our state when it comes to first-time home buying and young families and communities of color. We are actually the third worst state in the country for Black Wisconsinites to own a home. And so, I mean, the question was, what can we do to help address these challenges, knowing that we are seeing affordability become more and more of a challenge, wages are stagnant, and people are facing a lot of debt, whether it's with student loans or just trying to stay afloat and running up their credit card bills. And so in having these conversations, I have a really unique role in partnering with our 72 county treasurers and 1,400 municipal treasurers. And in these meetings that we've had, something that has come up is home ownership and their unique role, because they're not just collecting taxes, they also want to make sure people can own a home and how can they help them. And really this conversation led to our home ownership task force, which we launched literally a week before the pandemic back in March of 2020. And the whole idea was to bring together county and municipal treasurers, lenders, community service organizations, legal experts, and really address how can we improve these stats, because our neighbors are beating us and we know it's important for our communities. And we wanted to look at everything from improving home ownership opportunities to foreclosures to literally how can we prevent, for example, penalties that are accrued through property taxes with home ownership. And this coalition formed together, we launched, and then COVID hit. And so we went from task force mode to action mode, because if there's something that we have learned from the Great Recession of 08 and 09 is that home ownership is really a lagging impact. It's not until almost a year or two later where we will start seeing these statistics that more and more people are unable to afford their homes as literally their subsidies and support start to run out. And so in kind of thinking through what can we start doing today to make sure we can keep people in their homes, we formed into 3 sustainable committees. And this was, again, very action centric. The first committee, and I think we can go to the next slide. The first committee was dealing with taxpayer empowerment and what are ways that we can provide not just tools with financial literacy and education, but also ways that we can help outreach and be more proactive with folks as we look at property taxes and property tax foreclosure. The second group was looking at how can we develop, as LaDonna mentioned early on, early warning system to keep people in their homes. And this was actually something that we piloted thanks to Cooley Cap and the leadership of Hetty Brown, where we could identify homes that were impacted by COVID and could be behind in making their property tax payments. Because when we look at Milwaukee, for example, after the Great Recession of 08 and 09, we went from 70 property tax foreclosures to over 400. So that was kind of the first group. The second thing in looking at foreclosure was for folks that were much further on, that literally had a lien against their home, but they owed like $6,000 to $9,000 maybe with property taxes, and they couldn't take out money from a bank. And so yet they had significant equity. And so what are ways that we can provide for people that are, a month, 2-3 months away from foreclosure? And then the third group is this statewide network, because as I mentioned, we brought together a very unique group of leaders involved in home ownership, from the realtors to nonprofit folks in the home ownership space to, again, county and municipal treasurers. And what we learned in our conversations is that these thought leaders were really coming up with effective ways to not just stay in a home, but also buy a home and fix a home. Because we know Wisconsin has some of the older home housing stock that consists of lead pipes and lead paint. And we need to make sure that we address these things to keep people safe and healthy. So that was then the development of the statewide homeownership committee. And what I'm really excited about for really the rest of our hour today is these committee leaders are going to talk about the solutions that we delivered. And so we will start, and we can go to the next slide, Julie. We will start with Treasurer Terry Jacobs, who is the Kenosha County Treasurer. She was chair of our homeownership task force. Thank you, Hetty. And also led our work with the Taxpayer Empowerment Group. We then will have Hetty Brown, who I'm sure many of you are familiar with. Hetty is the executive director of Cooley Cap, a cap agency in Western Wisconsin, and also led our foreclosure committee. And then we will close with Joanna, who is now our new Take Root Wisconsin director, which is great news. We have an amazing woman who is now leading the charge. And Joanna actually was the program manager for Take Root Milwaukee, which is one of the programs that really helped model and inspire the statewide network that you'll hear about today. So I will turn it over to Terry, who will talk about the taxpayer empowerment work.
Thank you, Miss Sarah. It's always great to be reminded of all the exciting distance we have traveled over the last year and change here. I chair both the task force and the taxpayer empowerment committee was kind of my baby. And we developed quite a few different resources for people both in the community, for taxpayers, for community groups to use. And that started out, if we want to just, with a couple of websites that we have linked here, but we'll get back to those in a second. We did, the first thing we did is we came up with a curriculum. As many of you know, that there is a statewide requirement for financial literacy in high schools. Well, we thought, you know what? That's the first touch we need to have. If we want people to really be prepared by the time they're in their mid-20s, early 30s to own a home, we have to start when they're in high school figuring out how to budget. And so we created a bunch of resources that can be used not only for high school students, but also for first-time home buyers and honestly, current home buyers who don't know this information. And we tested it. We shared the curriculum out. We created videos and handouts that people can use when they teach the class. And it's gone really well. And it's currently being taught in different school districts. It's a slow rollout through COVID because, as you know, a lot of teachers had a lot of different pressure on this year. But we've been getting it out and about, and the information's going really well. The next thing we focused on were those websites that we talked about. And we really wanted to have one place for statewide information on property taxes that was done in a way that's easy to understand and easy to navigate and could get people in contact with their local treasurers. Because honestly, most people don't know how to contact their local treasurer or they're intimidated by it. So we wanted to make it easy to find out basic information, but also easy to find out how to actually talk to a real person to get specific information on your property. So that was our next trick. And we have two major portals though we created. Maybe later, if we have extra time, we'll go into them a little more in depth. But the next portal, after the frequently asked questions one, was actually geared more towards other treasurers and community groups that may be doing education with the public on property taxes. We wanted to improve the way we communicated about property taxes. So we created a committee that really just looked at all those mailings we send out, how we could make that legalese a little easier to understand for the average homeowner, and easier for them to get at the roots of what they really want to know, which is, you know, how much do I owe? What happens if I don't pay? And how can I get help? And so really we tried to focus everything on plain language templates and tools for them. And we tried to make it so that smaller municipalities that may not have a graphic designer or fancy programs could just edit these things in Word and get it out to the public. That kind of led us to this fun little map that we like to show. And it's the idea that there are a lot of places between when the property tax comes out and when a tax foreclosure process starts, that there can be a stop, a get out of jail free card where they can get off the highway and get paid up and get caught up. But in order for people to take advantage of that, not only do they have to know the rules, but they need some help along that pathway. And there are some challenges on getting that help that we identified through the committee. Julie, if you want to go to the next slide, you can see that unlike traditional mortgage delinquencies, with property taxes, it's set by law. We can't change things. We can't negotiate the interest rate. We can't really offer them significantly longer at a lower rate, they can't refinance, they can't go into forbearance. That interest and penalty just keeps ticking along the road. And there's really, we notice a lack of programs out there to help people when they get behind on their property taxes. So this is what leads us to our next discussion about the need. And we saw that need in every county across the state. And there were, in Pierce County, there were 22 parcels owing almost $200,000 in delinquent taxes. La Crosse County, we had 72,000 owing $260,000 in delinquent taxes. So there were real needs, and we didn't want this recession from COVID to end up like the one in 2008, where people were losing their homes left and right. So we decided to start a little pilot program, and I'm going to turn things over to Ms. Hetty to talk a little bit about this two-pronged strategy we came up with pretty early on in the COVID recession, and what she came up with as our first early intervention program in the state of Wisconsin and our pilot for our program going forward. Ms. Hetty?
Thanks, Terry. Yeah, so that's when our committee kicked in. So as Sarah mentioned earlier, I co-chaired the Foreclosure Prevention Committee with my colleague, Jenny Fasula, who's the director of the Foundation for Rural Housing in Wisconsin. And our committee focused on preventing foreclosure, but we use this two-pronged approach. As Terry mentioned, there's a lot of ways that we can jump in and help people along that long highway to tax foreclosure. So we wanted to intervene early and catch people early on, especially as the pandemic were hurting people's finances. But we also wanted to pilot that late stage intervention as people were further down. And this is what we usually think of when we think of tax foreclosure, where they're at risk of actually losing their home. Next slide, please. So in both scenarios, we used a partnership strategy, leveraging the relationship between local treasurers at the county or municipal level, funders, and social service agencies. So in regards to the pilot program that leveraged early intervention, we were able to secure funding from the La Crosse Community Foundation and our relationship with local La Crosse County Treasurer Amy Twitchell, and our Coulee Cap Community Development Specialist Sarah Berger designed a program to identify households through data and develop a program that used outreach tools and techniques, HUD certified counseling to provide financial counseling and cash assistance to help homeowners, and then follow up with those homeowners to make sure that they can be successful long term. We also used relationships and partnerships with the local Consumer Credit Counseling Services Agency to provide deeper level counseling when that was needed. So the goal of this pilot program was to help 15 low to moderate income households address those early delinquencies and get them back on track quickly. Next slide. You can see a example of the flyer that we used for outreach on the right-hand side, and we reached out to 107 households, and we received 21 responses through that outreach. Now, because of the limitations of the funding that we received, meaning it had to be used specifically for COVID impacted households, that was a little bit limiting in terms of the financial payments that we could use. But every household that responded to us received some kind of financial counseling and assistance through referrals. But as was mentioned earlier, the main goal of this pilot was to test and build early detection systems and outreach systems, which we were able to do. We used surveys to collect information from the households on their awareness of systems that were in place to help them. Had they ever interacted with our agency before, or did they know what the Treasurer Office was there to do for them? And we were collecting data all along the way, and we still are, because this pilot program is still going. We're using this data to inform statewide initiatives that you'll hear about later in the program. Next slide. The next pilot program that we're running launched by our committee with the goal of serving people currently at risk later down the road because of longer term delinquencies. We have established the first of its kind program to help homeowners avoid foreclosure through a short-term, low-interest, flexible revolving loan fund. As you can see, the eligibility criteria here is intended to help people through a variety of resources and counseling and assistance to help them avoid foreclosure. Next slide. There are many benefits to this new revolving loan fund that promotes and leverages partnerships between treasurers, social service agencies, the homeowner, and banking institutions for successful outcomes. Ultimately, the revolving loan fund is going to help keep people in their homes while serving the entire community through the repayment of taxes. And the revolving loan fund is providing accessible, low barrier programs that help people access their own equity in their homes to get them caught up and keep them caught up. It's reducing tax delinquencies and bringing those tax dollars back into the community while preventing homelessness. Next slide. Now, as Terry talked about earlier, one of the biggest issues when people fall behind on taxes is that snowball effect. There are stiff penalties and interest rates, so that even if people got caught up on their taxes, sometimes it's just insurmountable for them to get caught up on the interest rates. As you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, that these late fees and penalties can really snowball. But through this revolving loan fund, as you can see in the middle there, the interest rates for this fund is a lot lower. So in 3 to 4 years, someone can pay off their loan, get caught up, and stay caught up. We are currently piloting this program in the 6 counties that you see on the right-hand side of your screen with funding from the state of Wisconsin Housing Cost Reduction Initiative. And with data that we're collecting from this, we can then expand the program and scale it up to a statewide program. Now, while we are using these 2 pilot programs to collect data for the statewide initiative, we know that homeowners across the state are in need right now. And so I'm going to turn it over to Johanna Jimenez to share our vision for the new State Homeowners Network, Take Root Wisconsin. Johanna?
Thank you so much, Hetty. I just have to get the presentation in front of me. Thank you for having me in here today to talk about Take Root Wisconsin. As the secretary mentioned, I am for a short period of time now the Take Root Milwaukee manager. And so when I was, recruited to be on this task force, I felt so excited because I know that this model works here in Milwaukee, and we can expand it to other communities in Wisconsin. So if we can go to the next slide, please. So, that's how we came up with, Take Root Wisconsin. It only made sense, that we try to duplicate something that's already working in other communities. And so our goal, our tagline, as you can see here, is, we're going to be calling all communities throughout Wisconsin, to come together and take root in their neighborhoods, in their homes, in their communities, again, to promote sustainable and affordable homeownership. Next slide, please. So, again, going back to what I was saying, our mission is to improve, homeownership in communities that are struggling. We want to increase the number of first-time homeowners. There's a lot of resources, information, opportunities, resources that are either free or low cost to educate people on homeownership and get them to, that closing table and getting their keys. Preventing property tax and bank-owned foreclosures. So Hetty talked a little bit about, that pilot program, and we're hoping again to expand this even further than what we're going to be doing next with those counties. And then, Terry talked about, the tax foreclosure education as well. I think that's one of the key things that we want to do is to educate, people who are current homeowners so that they can keep their homes. And then improving the housing and housing quality, health and safety. We want everyone, to have a safe and healthy home. This has always been important, but we saw this past year and a half how very, very important it is as families had to spend more time in their homes. I'm pretty sure that there were some families that, that was a struggle for them. So we want to be able to address this disparity in some of our communities. Next slide, please. So I'll talk a little bit about what our guiding principles, that our task force, our committee came to. Sorry, I'm trying to expand my. One second. Okay. I'm on my little screen of my setup here, and I might as well be using a cell phone. So, our guiding principles. We want inclusivity. Everyone has, a role to play in this task force, in this new program, I should say. I need to start referring it as that because it's actually, we've launched it. We're ready to go. We know that we can't do it alone. We need partners and supporters throughout the state, and everyone has a role to play in completing this mission. We want to make sure that, we are driving equity and removing discriminatory barriers. As you may all be aware of, what those are, the disparities that, happen, especially here in Milwaukee. There's a lot of people that, have their hearts in the right place and they want to be able to continue to drive equity forward. We want to prioritize communities that are struggling with homeownership. Again, we've seen the numbers that say, that people of color, the wealth gap is huge, and homeownership is part of what helps people build wealth. And so we want to make sure that we're making it a priority to get these resources to those people who are struggling the most. We want to make sure that, this isn't just another program, that we're actually seeing results. We want to be able to help transform communities and families and stabilize, the economic situations for those people and those communities. We want it to be something that sticks. Just, for lack of a better word. Take Root, the Take Root brand is known to be a trusted resources brand. And so we are going to do the same thing with the Take Root Wisconsin brand. I kind of just swooped into my other guiding principle, but yes, we want to make sure that our partners, our supporters, our members are recognized as those trusted leaders in all of these communities. And then, we don't let, perfect be the enemy of the greater good, right? We're just figuring this out. We come together with all our resources and knowledge and connections to figure this out, because this is the first statewide Take Root that has been created. And so here's an opportunity to, reach communities that maybe just don't have that reach of resources. So we want to be able to create that that bridge, that pathway to get them those resources. And so we're counting on our members and our supporters to come to the table with their experience and their resources and their intuitiveness and their innovations to really make this work and continue to work. Next slide, please. So some of our, capabilities, or services that we're going to focus on, and I'm going to go through these a little bit brief, but advocacy, that was one of the main priorities that I felt should be brought up in the task force, is to, help communities that don't get their voice heard. And so, that is something that we need to continue to do, is to advocate for better resources, for, better situation, better services, better funding, all those kinds of things to make this mission of our program be sustainable and successful. We want to be the statewide convener and thought leader. Again, going back to that brand, we want to be able to bring together stakeholders and collaborate with those that, have good ideas, good working models already. And we want to be able to share and possibly duplicate, those services or ideas to help another community out. We want to be that resource hub. Again, our network is going to, our program is going to be a consortium of housing resources and information. And so we want to be that hub where communities throughout the state can call and get access to reliable resources to help them in their homeownership needs. We want to address affordability and access. Like I said before, there's gaps in, wealth building and the numbers of homeowners within communities of color specifically. But we want to also make sure that, everyone has access to, financial products and services that are going to make homeownership affordable. We don't just want people to buy houses. That's far from our goal, right? It's great for the economy and, the cities and municipalities and things, but we want to make sure that it's affordable because we don't want to run into the same housing crisis that we did in 2008, right? Outreach, connecting with communities. This is going to be one of the most important things that we do as well, because in the role that I'm playing here in Milwaukee, it astounds me when I am meeting someone who wants to become a homeowner and they tell me, like, I didn't know about this. And these resources are in their communities. And so we want to make sure that, we are putting the word out there, to connect people with those resources that they need. Sorry, I need to move this because the chat keeps popping up and messing up my screen. And again, I can't emphasize this enough that, we need to be a trusted resource. So, the vetting process for, our members is going to be key to making sure, again, that we can facilitate all the other, our capabilities and the services, the resources that we want to promote. Next slide, please. So how does this work? And I guess I started to get into that a little bit. So the Take Root Wisconsin program is going to be housed under WisCAP, the Wisconsin Community Action Program. It'll be a statewide initiative, that will focus on low to moderate income populations. We are going to convene members to promote the sustainability of first-time homeownership. We will identify, develop, and promote regional housing resources, financial products, educational tools, and services. We will create strategies to dismantle housing discrimination and achieve equity in homeownership. Everyone, no matter where they come from, deserves to be a homeowner if that's what they desire. So we will work towards eliminating those barriers. We want to act as a trusted resource to achieve regional goals. We understand that every community is different, and so we will focus on regional opportunities and resources that make sense for those communities. What may work in one community is not always going to work in the next, right? So we will focus on making sure that those resources are trusted in the areas that they need to be accessed. We want to advocate for policies that advance sustainable homeownership. Again, going back to some of the things that I've said, there are disparities, discrimination still happens. And so we want to make sure that people are protected, that their rights to homeownership and to financing and safe and affordable banking, all of those kind of things that are going to help sustain and support homeownership. We want to advocate, for any policies. We want to advocate against any policies that restrain people from getting those. So next slide, please. So this is how our structure will be for the Take Root program. We will have an administrative board. This will be a board made up of, the members who will have oversight on key decisions. And then we will have 7 working committees who will be supported by WISCAP and staff. Those committees are advocacy and policy, race and equity, education, foreclosure prevention, housing quality, safety and health, affordability, and outreach and marketing. So, WISCAP and with myself, now that I'm the director, we will help to, grow these committees, starting with the administrative board, obviously, but we want partners. We want people to become members and provide their, their knowledge, their skills, their research, whatever it is that can help us address these things through our committees. We want you there as a member, as a partner, to be able to carry this network forward and continue to grow it. Next slide, please. So this is how we're going to build our administrative board. Obviously, we had a long list of, of groups or professions that we could have put together. But, again, we are hoping that this is what's going to bring, that strength to make sure that this program takes root and is then able to help all the regions. Nonprofits and academics, we're going to have HUD-approved counseling agencies, state and local governments. So you see there the county treasurer, the state treasurers, and legislative bodies and local governments will be represented on the administrative board, as well as realtors, financial institutions and foundations, legal and advocacy agencies, and then regional representatives. So 6 of them comprised of community partners or citizens. An example is Take Root Milwaukee. We're already established as a regional partner, and then other organizations or representatives of the other regions in Wisconsin. Next slide, please. And so right now, I just want to say thank you to the founding members and everybody who volunteered their time to come to, these meetings that we held during the pandemic. I'm very proud of the work that we did coming together, and I'm so thankful, to Secretary Garlewski for putting this together, and Terry for being our chair, and Brad also for co-chairing with me, and everyone else that chaired the other committees. But Freddie Mac is one of our founding members, Associated Bank, who you've heard from before, the Wisconsin Realtors Association, WISTAF, Metropolitan Milwaukee Fair Housing Council, and Take Root Milwaukee. And so again, thank you for coming together and helping us put this mission together and putting this network together to make homeownership possible and sustainable and affordable for everyone in Wisconsin. Next slide. I think that is all of mine. So I think I'm going to kick it over to Sarah now.
Yes. Thanks, Joanna. And it's really exciting work. And as you guys can see, we've been busy. Before I get into next steps, I just want to highlight that we're going to have about 10 minutes for Q&A. And so I've seen a few questions in the chat. Feel free to add questions and we will open up the line as well, because we want to make this a dialogue as we are kind of moving through our presentation today. So what's next? Well, Take Root Wisconsin and Work with Our Partners is coming to a neighborhood near you. What we've been very lucky on is with the American Rescue Plan, Wisconsin has qualified for $93 million for homeownership assistance. And so this is to help families that are struggling, whether it is with mortgage reinstatements and principal reduction, to non-mortgage arrears services as well. And so we're looking for homeowners, whether it is that are in forbearance or have been delinquent. This could include, for example, even folks that are behind with their monthly maintenance fees or HOAs. So that is kind of where we are going next. We have developed in partnership with Decker, the governor's office, and of course, WisCap, Take Root. They have put together a plan that have outlined really what and how this $93 million will be used. And it's what we are tagging this program as is Wisconsin Help for Homeowners Program. And so if you have not looked at this plan, it's available through Decker's website on DOA. And we have public comment that is currently opened until the 14th of September. We did 2 public comment sessions last week to get feedback. And our next step after we close the public feedback session is to provide this plan to Treasury. It's due to the US Treasury, and we hope to get our money then for implementation in the fall. But what you heard as far as bringing folks together, the different tools that haven't been in place with property tax foreclosure, helping people through the Take Root collaborative model, working with county treasurers, CAP agencies, other social service entities, is exactly the collaborative partnership in distributing these Help for Homeownership funds that Wisconsin will benefit from, as we have learned from the past in 08 and 09, making sure we get money to help people. So that is what is next, and we are really looking forward to rolling this out. I will just end, and I think, Julie, if we can go to the last slide, is that these are the resources. So this is where you can find our Homeownership Task Force report, Take Root Wisconsin, and the Help for Homeowners program. So feel free to visit those websites. And of course, as always, my door is always open. If there are any questions or any thoughts, feedback you have, feel free to email treasurer@wisconsin.gov. And with that, I will turn it over to you. We want to hear from you on any questions that you may have. I'm going to open up the chat to see what kind of questions we've been getting so far.
I just want to add something real quick. I see the chat, Tammy brought up housing programs for repairs. Yes, I did kind of gloss over that. That will be part of our focus with Take Root Wisconsin, is to grow those resources for current homeowners who are struggling to fix their homes. And so I just wanted to mention that. The website, the Take Root Wisconsin website, is a work in progress. Again, my official start date is in a couple of weeks. So we're working to get everything situated. And so then I can, hit the ground running with, creating the administrative committee and to, taking in those applications. So start sending your applications to become part of Take Root Wisconsin.
Yeah, and I think we all recognize how important those repair prong is. I think one of the big issues right now in Wisconsin is the lack of contractors to even do the work if we have the money. So that's something that we've definitely already started looking into and trying to get a handle on. Joanna is one of the most outspoken people on the need to increase ability for people to get help with repairing their homes. So I have faith that we will come a long way in the next year or so.
Thanks, Terry. Thanks, Joanna. We will make sure to know that you are transitioning if you don't respond instantly in your new role. Any questions, whether in the chat or from the audience? You can also feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question to any of the panelists.
Sarah, there was a question earlier on, I think it was during my presentation, regarding the contact person for Douglas County. Douglas County is one of the pilot programs for the revolving loan fund. If you are in one of the 6 counties that has that revolving loan fund available, you can contact the Wisconsin, the Foundation for Rural Housing. So there was contact on the slide, but we went pretty quickly. So and maybe Julie can put this in I don't think I have access to put this in the chat for the whole audience. But the phone number is 888-400-5974, or the email is wrh@wisconsinruralhousing.org. So if you're in one of those 6 counties that has the pilot program running and you want more information, you can contact the Foundation for Rural Housing.
Thanks, Hetty. And Julie did just put it in the chat for everyone to see that. So feel free to look for it there.
Question about
Joanna, there's a question that's kind of specific. So my thought is maybe to go macro and then micro. Can you maybe explain how the homeownership buying process worked with Take Root and kind of the support and services that Take Root Milwaukee provided with individuals that were looking to buy a home?
Sure. So the first thing we tell them is to go to the HUD-approved counseling agencies. Sometimes people are just starting out, right? They just had the idea like, hey, it's time for me to become a homeowner. What do I do? So the HUD counseling agencies, they have counselors that can, take a look at your finances, your credit, your work history, your banking situation, and they can help you go along with the process with education on, homeownership. What's available as far as financing, what kind of loan you can get, what kind of credit score you need, all those kind of things that you kind of need to prepare before you even go look at a house. A lot of people do call realtors, and that's perfectly fine, but I would say get educated first on how the process works, and then get yourself a team of people that are going to help you through that home buying process. And by team, I mean that HUD-approved counseling agency. You're going to need a realtor. You're going to need a lender, obviously. And so the good thing about these HUD-approved counseling agencies is that they also provide, resources and services, not just in the beginning, but also afterwards. So, they become, you would become part of, their clients, and they can help you, if 10 years down the line, you need a repair service, right? Like we were just talking about repairs, they can connect you through the Take Root network to those kind of resources. And so, there may be grants available for down payment assistance. A lot of people look for that, right? So those HUD-approved counseling agencies will help you do that. So in Milwaukee specifically, we have 3 local agencies. It's Axe Housing, the United Community Center, and the HRI, Housing Resources Incorporated. And so it'll be part, of my mission to reach out to all of our communities and our regions to find out who's HUD approved, because we want to make sure that, people are using trusted resources. And so HUD counselors go through training, recertifications, so that they're giving you trusted and reliable information. And so the Take Root Wisconsin, network will help you do that. I'm not familiar with Kenosha, to be honest with you, but I do know that HRI, Housing Resources Incorporated, does work in the Racine County, which is close to Kenosha. There's also Green Path Financial Wellness. They are a HUD-approved counseling agency, and I can put the link to Take Root Milwaukee website. It's already on there. Great. So Green Path is national organization. So, if there isn't a local agency in Kenosha, you can definitely call Green Path.
Thanks.
You put in the chat that Housing Resources Inc. does cover Kenosha. I know that for a fact because I do their housing education for first-time buyers thing here in Kenosha. So.
Nice to have the Kenosha County Treasurer for a Kenosha question. Perfect. Thanks for the question. I'm just looking at the chat, or anybody want to unmute themselves about the network? I think in the meantime, Joanna, we've got 1 minute. Can you maybe talk about just highlighting a few of the key outcomes that Take Root Milwaukee saw as far as numbers and results? Because I think that is something that we can look towards as far as the work that we are working towards with Take Root Wisconsin, knowing that, as we just said, we just hit the ground. We're in our infancy. We've not been around since you all have in what, like 2012. What can we be expecting as far as what some of these outcomes look like based on Milwaukee's success?
Oh, sure. Just put me on the spot to pull up data. Okay, so we actually just celebrated our 10-year anniversary at Take Root Milwaukee. We were supposed to celebrate it last year, but we got together this year, and I can find the document, not while I'm on the spot, but I can link it or send it to Julie. Julie, if you have the 10-year annual report or report that I had sent out, maybe you can link that in the chat. But you know, it's so important, you know, to continue this work, because we're creating new homeowners. We are helping families get stabilized, you know, and I think now more than ever, because of what we've been through the last year and a half, I'll tell you really quick that the real estate market has boomed. Like, it has been nonstop, because one, you know, people are realizing that they're ready for homeownership, or they want to be ready for homeownership, given that they're spending so much time at home, right? They want a safe, reliable, comfortable, and spacious enough home, you know, so that they can be school teachers, so that they can be a PE teacher, right, to their kids, so that they can work from home. A lot of us are working from home, right? And so that has become important to people, and they've come out. The housing counseling agencies have been busy nonstop providing education, and thank goodness for technology, that, you know, we were able to take our educational, you know, classes virtual. And so people have been continuing to get that, right? The number two, you know, reason why people call Take Root Milwaukee is those repair programs. And so this is where advocacy is going to be huge for our networks, because a lot of the resources are based on demographics of a neighborhood. So, you know, there's only so much money. That's another thing. Yes, there's federal funds, but sometimes that's not enough, especially in a community where the housing stock is really old. You know, Milwaukee has not seen, you know, a lot of new construction, right? As far as single family homes, other things, yes, right? And so, you know, people need repairs. The economy, we have an aging population, you know, that are on fixed income. So there's a lot of situations where, you know, people find themselves that affect their homeownership, and we want to be able to be that connector to those resources. Every situation is different. So I love that, you know, I have a hotline, you know, Take Root Wisconsin is going to be able to kind of triage the calls as they come in, because we don't want to just transfer someone to an agency that we think is going to help them. We want to make sure that they're connected. So I'm grateful for the questions about specific areas, you know, because every community is different. And so we are hoping, again, to, you know, find out what is already working and find out how we can help them be better or reach more people, because the number of people, you know, that we've been able to help over the last 10 years at Take Root Milwaukee is a lot. Julie will probably try to link that document so that you guys can know. But we've seen people from foreclosure.
We can make sure Julie links that, Joanna. And again, I just want to say thank you for your leadership. I want to thank Terry and Hetty for joining in their leadership and the work that you've learned more about today. And just in closing, my request to the group is really twofold. If you are interested in being part of the Take Root Network, please visit the website. We are looking for more partners. This is really a collaborative model. The more, the better as far as being effective across the state. And then the second request is, as we mentioned, the $93 million, we want to make sure really is working to the best of its ability and helping folks across Wisconsin. And so please provide us feedback so we can make sure this is the best program and we are optimizing that $93 million. And we are still at that public comment period until the 14th of September. So that is it. We look forward to coming to a neighborhood near you as we are rolling this out. And I will turn it over to Terry for a really fun closing with the $100 Wisconsin Dells giveaway. So going to our game show host, I feel like.
I feel very Vanna White right now. Yeah, it's very exciting. So we have an exciting giveaway that's coming up here at the 2021 Property Matters Conference. Now we have a $100 gift card to the Wisconsin Dells, but this isn't just any gift card. It's redeemable at over 200 different places in Wisconsin Dells. So you could have a lot of fun in the Dells with this gift card. So Cassidy, you want to give the wheel a spin and see who our winner is? I feel like we need a drum roll or something exciting right now. Oh, all right, Cassidy. Great. Congratulations, Sitha. You won. WisCap will contact you to send you your gift card shortly. And with that, I believe we're concluding the lunch plenary. And thank you so much for coming to listen to this panel discussion. And we hope you enjoy the rest of your conference. Bye, everyone.